Shalom Rastafari, Assalamu alaikum, peace to the kings and the queens and the earth. I want to give a big shout out and blessings to everyone listening, and especially the haters, man. I appreciate y'all, I really do. Thank you for the motivation always. Yeah, I love it. And I want to also thank the people who always have my back, who always look out, who stand up for me. And I just felt like saying that this morning. You know what I mean? It's just, there's things that go on behind closed doors with me that I don't address. And there's people who know that, and they get to see the strength that that I display by not responding to hate, not responding to lies, not responding to slander. All I have is that person I feel sorry for. I hope you heal one day. I hope you literally heal. To the people who wake up and have a lot of hate in their heart and decide to display it online or whatever, I hope you heal. Because ultimately the people who are good people in this world wouldn't even fathom doing the things that some of these people have done. So when I get it, and if anything, if you're ever talked about, if you're listening to me, if you're ever talked about or someone says something about you, just know that you know, there's a lot of hurt people out here. There's a lot of sick people out here. And at the end of the day, some of these people just need to be healed before they get the karma that they are building up. And sometimes God hits way harder than we all can. The universe really hits harder. He does something that, to the point where I pray for my enemies, because I know for a fact that if God does what he is telling me he's going to do and ordained to do, that they're not going to be able to handle that. So with that being said, my entire talk is about Phil Jackson and his comments. Basically, the title of this podcast is Phil Jackson, controversial comments, and basically why you have to watch anybody as far as what their racial undertone is, no matter what you may see on the outside. So Phil Jackson, no matter what you may see on the outside, the inner always comes out. So for those who may not know, Phil Jackson is one of the most successful coaches and athletes in the NBA. He has a total of 13 rings. I think he won 3 on his own while he played. And then he, in turn, won another 10 championships. Now you're like, damn, Phil Jackson, you seem like a successful coach. And he is a very successful coach. However, he also was blessed to have some of the best athletes ever on his teams. All right. I don't got to even talk about it, but Phil Jackson, he was the coach of Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen when Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen were winning all these rings. And then he just all of a sudden transitioned to LA, where he got to also coach Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe Bryant. All these people were together. So these were mega teams, and he was blessed to literally be with these athletes, put them together, and assemble the triangle and be a great coach and win tons of championships. Now, he made some controversial comments, and he basically said that he has not watched the NBA since 2020, when they started protesting with the BLM Black Lives Matter campaign. So basically he's just saying that, like, you know, he didn't like that. He's not watching it since then. Interesting. One, it's kind of weird how racism is always exposed eventually, right? It's almost like it comes out of your pores. It's like if a person were to eat a meal with nothing but onions, right? And they try to hide it, but then let's say all of a sudden they start sweating, right? All of a sudden you're going to start smelling those onions that they've been eating all damn day. So they can't hide it, right? It's more, maybe they could have hid it if they didn't sweat or if they stayed by themselves, you know what I mean? And didn't burp a little bit, You can't, when a person is racist, you can't hide it. And there are people who, again, I have read plenty of books that confirm this analogy, is that just because you may have a interracial child, you may have even slept with a few black men and women, you especially in a professional level. You may have coached a bunch of black kids. You may have worked with a bunch of black people. You think you might have a few friends that are possibly black. But in essence, also, that kind of covers you from your real feelings, right? Like you have specific feelings about a specific race, so you keep them around you to hide the inner fact that you really don't like them, right? So this is when we got to be careful as far as the black nation, especially when people are like coaching us or in points of leadership, no matter what color they are, because of the sense of like some people will literally do this. All right, I know a person right now. This is what I was speaking about earlier in my intro. That to me is using a culture, that is using it, and this person is a teacher, teaching people, teaching students, and literally acting as if they're not racist because they have a cover thing. Now you're like, how can I be racist? I'm teaching indigenous teachings. I have a specific, situation at home that an interracial son or daughter, How can I say it? I can say it because at the end of the day, when it comes down to protesting, when it comes down to talking about it, when it comes down to standing up, when it comes down to actually saying something about it, when it comes down to showing empathy about it, you're nowhere to be fucking found. So you can have a son or daughter who's that color. You can have people in your life that are that color. You can have baby daddies, baby mamas. You can have, a boyfriend or girlfriend on that level. And after a while, the actions stand out. For instance, if you're a person who's like that, who's never been around a strong black person or a black American especially, and you get with a black American who's going to be affected when they hear one of their brothers get shot by the police unarmed and nothing will happen about it, and you have nothing to say at all, you just kind of sit there and look, but you're willing to have kids and live the certain life, and no, you have a need for black bodies. And this is being read. This isn't some kind of opinion. I've read about 6 books now that have said this is the concept of most people in the world. Some people just need black bodies around them, ultimately to hide their internal racism that they've always had, their superior feeling that they always had. They don't want to really accept the truth about themselves. So they'll just keep a lost kind of thing. Phil Jackson is the epitome of this to me. Because you could sit there and benefit a lot, too, from a league that is 85% ran by black people, black athletes and black coaches. 2, you have all 4 of these people are Hall of Famers. First ballot immediately. Greatest top 50 players of all time. You've had 4 of them on your damn league. Probably way more than that, actually. Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Kobe Bryant, Shaquille O'Neal. You have benefited from some of the most unbelievable athletes who are black, who got you your championships, who got you your rings. In turn, that builds a foundation. I'm quite sure you were compensated very highly for that. And you've never really, Phil Jackson, if you think about it, he's never said anything about the situation. He's watched us get killed countless times. And it's not like, well, other coaches aren't. Steve Kerr says stuff, right? Popovich, he has zero problem ever speaking out on anything, the coach of the Spurs. And a bunch of other coaches as well who got into that prominent level because they understand who's with them. They understand who exactly is it. You know what? It's unbelievable because it'd be like if I just were to sit here. Let's say I'm coaching hockey, right? I'm coaching hockey, and my entire team is like 90%, European, Canadian, white, whatever you want to say it. And I then coached them for 10 years or 15 years. And I, in turn, have, again, some of the best hockey players to come through in the world, like championship winning. They were on my team, right? They were on my team. I benefited really well from them. I won 5 Stanley Cups, right? And then all of a sudden, let's say there's a serious issue against people who, let's say they're most of my players were from Ukraine for whatever reason, and I decided not to speak up at all, saying I stopped watching, and like I retired from hockey. I stopped watching hockey ever since they started talking about the Ukraine war. Do you know how much get back I get from that? They'd be like, "How you gonna be?" Like, you know what I mean? But I honestly think that black people are the most picked on and the most hated at all, because it's almost like they know we're still down. They know we're not as unified as we could be. They know we don't own so many things that if you said something about us, we can take away some of your, financial freedom that you have. They know that. And they know that it's almost like if we react in a anger way, that just shows, look at their animals. So we're trapped. It's almost that's the thing about it. Some people literally will take advantage of the fact that you are a big black person, and if you show any passion or any, someone attacking you, and you show any kind of like reflect back or revenge back, you are now a dangerous person. So it's almost like it's so the most narcissistic thing is poking a bear, right? And then the person who poked the bear acting as if like, oh, I just poked you, I didn't do anything. You poked the bear, you got the reaction. Oh no, but that wasn't necessary. You didn't have to pick me up and throw me somewhere. Why'd you even poke me in the first place? I was sitting here hibernating. I wasn't even messing with you. I wasn't even talking to you. That's the narcissistic situation. And to me, that's almost how Phil Jackson has done this. He knows that there's not going to be any get back. He got enough money. He doesn't really care. And for him to basically say, yeah, I really don't care about your cause. I just want to play basketball. And that's what's holding some of the black nation back. And you're right. Not you're right, but I don't know who I'm talking to. But I was literally looking at a profile on Instagram, and they said the same thing. Black people are so quick to invite specific people to the cookout, right? I remember my mom used to love her some Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton, he's like black. He like black. He even put some black people in office. He put some pepper on the damn mashed potatoes. Okay, whatever. But look what he ended up doing. He gave us the 3-strike rule. There's still people in jail from that shit. You understand? Your third felony, you go to jail for life. It put hundreds of thousands of black people in jail for life for minor fucking offenses, minor felonies. But it was just their third. So they're in jail for life. And he's invited to the cookout. Okay. Phil Jackson, you probably thought, oh yeah, Phil can. Look at him. He saxophone playing, kind of groovy, tall guy. I think he might even smoke a little bit. He's very holistic. He's very, spiritual and indigenous. He got little indigenous things and da-da-da. Phil knows how to talk to anybody. Phil knows how to fucking talk to anyone and get them to lead into this situation. At the end of the day, though, there's only certain things that he's probably passionate about. One might be indigenous. The other might be maybe his white nation, but he didn't give a fuck about us. And there's probably a personal, real personal type of take that even would make us all almost faint how he actually feels about us. I promise you there is. Because when you see these little light things, how could you sit there? I'm going to tell you something. If I'm sitting here and working with a bunch of, let's say, Mexicans, and I'm working with them, we make a lot of money, and in 10 years we've been successful, and then something, pops off with the immigration as far as that, I'm right there in the front line. Right there in the front lines. The same thing out here in this area where a family was mowed down by a racist asshole, and their entire family was killed, and they were Muslim, right? I forgot where they were from, but they were Muslim. A whole family killed them, specifically ran them over. Like laughed about it, right? Killed like 5 people. Took out it, like the only person who was left was the son who was 4 or 5 years old. Frontline shit. Walk from the accident to the mosque, almost like 10 kilometers. Frontline stuff. You join in, because not only because I worked with a bunch of people who were there, it was the right thing to fucking do. So let alone, you know what I mean? Like I had a couple people who I worked with, they didn't even come, but I was coming in the sense of for other people. So that's a light care too, let alone if I had won championships and made I mean, ain't no millions of dollars. I'm talking about maybe almost a bill. Because if 100 million, 200, 300 million, all the endorsements and your name and your trademark, all that shit, you're probably making way more money than we can ever imagine off of the same people who you pretty much told you don't care about. Nah, I don't care about them protesting Black Lives Matter in the NBA because you sound like an idiot. Because here's another thing, too. You have no problem when they have LGBT month. You have no problem when we had the uniforms go to Spanish because we were talking about Spanish heritage in the NBA. You had no problem with that. You had no problem with them, doing specific games in specific countries to spread awareness. You had no problem with that. But when they talk about Black Lives Matter, now you all of a sudden you're not watching the NBA. You're not watching basketball. Okay, all right. You internally have some certain kind of situation toward us. And there are coaches who do this. My last thing, I've had a coach who was racist as all hell to me in high school. Racist as all hell. I had two coaches, both my junior and senior year. One of them called me a Negro. I think this player's a Negro, if I'm not mistaken. This is 1999, 98 to be exact. And then the last coach was just that undertone. Show any emotion, show our personality, show our animation. It was shut down. Couldn't wear gloves because it's Deion Sanders. All these racial undertone bullshit. When I got mad one time, don't throw your hair like Miami. You started hearing these undertone comments that I knew were racist, but who am I going to tell to? And you're coaching. Hell, my senior year, I had 14 sacks, 9 touchdowns as a tight end, and 14 sacks. I led the team in defensive points. I led the team in touchdowns. Guess who got the scholarship though? Alex Murray. Guess who was told? Guess who when the D1 schools called him to ask about me? What did he tell him? Oh, he's a D3 player. He's not going to get it. He's going to be a D3 player. Yeah, by my sophomore year, I should have transferred out of Buff State and walked on to like Georgia or some D1 school because I was bigger than anybody there, and my size was clearly not the division I was supposed to be, and everybody knew I was going to be that way. But he created that insecurity in me to not think that I was better than who I was as a person. Racist as fuck. I was the only couple black people who were in that team, but everybody else got promoted. So just because a person's coaching a bunch of black children does not mean that they are not at the core. They could be doing that to make themselves feel better and to be doing that to literally hide their racism inside their hearts. Just because a person might be even with a black man or a black woman doesn't mean that they internally are for them. There are plenty of women out here and males that will go with the other race and not give a fuck about that race. It's almost like it's a fetish. Or they might have a thicker body, right? So they know the black guy likes it, so they like that. But they don't give a fuck about you really on some G shit. They don't care. They could do nothing. They could literally sit there and watch you feel a certain way about what's happening to your people and literally laugh because it ain't them. It ain't their quote unquote people. But they'll sit there and act like they're for you, and they love you. They don't got no love for you, man. Phil Jackson just showed his cards. And if I'm the NBA and Phil Jackson and all that stuff, I'm like, okay, you don't got to watch us. We're not going to invite you to shit. And if I'm Shaq and Michael and I'm sending a letter to him like, you know what? If you didn't give a fuck about me, why did you coach me? If you didn't give a fuck about my cause and people who, you know what? How about this? You would have a problem with it if Michael Jordan got shot by police. You'd have a problem with it if Scottie Pippen got shot by the police unarmed. You'd have a problem with it if Shaq and Kobe got shot. Why? Is it because they're black? Maybe not. Maybe because you just lost one of your best players and you felt bad about it, but I guarantee you your ass would have said something. It would have affected you in a certain way. You would have been right there like Steve Kerr, like enough is enough, because it hits home. And some people, it needs to hit home for you to fucking feel it, which is sad. Because if God got to hit you at the house for you to feel it, that's some shit that most of y'all cannot handle, I promise you. So be careful with your karma. Be careful what you say and what you do out here to people, because you can't handle, when they don't respond, they're letting the universe handle you. And it might not be now, years down the line, but you can't handle that get back. And Phil Jackson, I'm telling you, some of this is this just showed everyone that he took your championships and did not care. So there's going to be some karma that answer to that. And it may even be when you pass away and you get to see who's actually the creator. You get to see what's actually going on. I believe that wholeheartedly. Sometimes people get karma in the afterlife and it's horrible. Or they get karma and toward the end where no one, you see there's a lot of people who you see in the senior citizen situation and they ain't got nobody no one calls them, no one does anything, and you just seen them, right? So you feel kind of bad, like, man, nobody cares about you. And then you kind of get to the truth of the matter, that their life has not been the best that they had put out like that. So at the end of the day, you buy your damn self. You better be careful how you treat people out here, man. I got a little edge on my podcast this morning. I'm sorry, but I just got tired of people attacking people who do not attack them back and who have no reason to attack them. I'm tired of my people getting trolled also, by people like him who can literally, Phil Jackson, who literally can sit there, coach you, take all your money. You got people blood, sweat, and tears, winning championships, making you look like the best coach ever. 13 rings from an 80 to 90% owned or ran black league, and you don't give a fuck about black lives. You don't care that the police are shooting us unarmed, and there's a clear problem that in any moment in time, anybody who you've coached could be murdered by the police unjustly. Their kids, their family, people who look like them. You don't care. It'd be like me not coming out and be like, I don't care about indigenous lives. I don't really care about that. Boy, I ain't got, like, someone would look at me like, you have been, like, what the fuck is wrong with you? It'd be weird to hear that come from me. Weird. And it's weird coming from Phil Jackson, but it really ain't, because some of y'all really don't care. If y'all need black bodies, you use black bodies, you fuck black bodies even. You have kids with black bodies even, but you don't really care about us like that. And it's sad because your sons and daughters going to grow up exactly like you, and they going to get hit in the head with a fucking cinder block of truth of who you really are. And they're gonna literally look at you differently for not preparing them for that world. Understand that. See, my parents, they prepared me for this shit. So Phil Jackson kind of surprised me because I didn't think he was like that, but I've seen this happen before. I've watched this happen before. I've been with coaches who were like that, clearly. I know it. I wasn't this crazy black dude who just thinks everything's racist. I knew this motherfucker was racist. And he got fired a year later. So, yeah. Love y'all. Stay up.